Ask you to record.
Nope.
Video record.
There we go.
Awesome. Hey, Justin. How you going?
Good. Yourself, Rachel?
Good, good. Hey, so my name's Rachel Halder and I am with ACE, and we are chatting with Justin Kitto, DairyNZ freshwater ecologist today about the ACE water testing workstream. So, hey, Justin, if you don't mind, can you just tell us a little bit about why is ACE water testing?
Yeah, not a problem. So when the project originally got up and running 3 years ago now, one of the first questions that the farmers were asking is, what is the state of our waterways? Is it good? Is it bad? What is it? So very early on in the project, we had a community meeting and we invited Environment Southland along, and they presented about their state of environment monitoring network, what they're sampling, when they're sampling, and gave a bit of an assessment of what the water quality was like in the catchment or in the freshwater management unit. And there were some good results, but there are also some bad results that did indicate that there were parts of the catchment or the freshwater management unit that were degraded. So one of the first things that the farmers came up with and wanted to explore was, okay, if we've got parts of the catchment where there is poor water quality, how do we understand where those hotspots of pollution are coming from, and can we ring fence where they are, and also what's it like coming off my farm. So there was quite a bit of conversation about what we were going to test and where to test and how to test and things like that, but that was really the genesis of why we're water testing and helping to understand what our issues are in the catchment is where are these problems, and how do we try and isolate these problems so that we can then manage them properly.
Yeah, and in the water testing space is a huge beast, isn't it? So I guess.
Yeah.
So what exactly are ACE water testing for?
So after quite a lot of conversation and to and fro, we're now focusing on the key water chemistry elements that the regional council also monitors. So we're collecting E. coli, turbidity data. So turbidity is a measure of how much light is able to penetrate the water column, and it's a surrogate measure for how much suspended sediment is in the water column. We're measuring phosphorus, in particular dissolved reactive phosphorus, total phosphorus, nitrogen, in particular ammoniacal nitrogen, total nitrogen, and what's known as nitrate nitrogen. And they're the common water chemistry measures that we collect throughout the country to help assess water quality. The other things that we're doing is the limitations of collecting that water chemistry data is quite dynamic in the environment based on rainfall. And you can go out at 9 o'clock in the morning and you can go out at lunchtime and you can technically get two different concentrations for different things, yet alone whether it's been raining or whether it's been dry and things like that. So what we have been doing is we've expanded what we're actually monitoring. So we planned on doing, but COVID disrupted, but we need to redo it as a thing known as a rapid habitat assessment. So you do a visual assessment of the river to figure out what the habitat conditions are like. So a river that's got more complexity of habitat is usually has more better ecological health, has more fish abundance, versus a straight ditch with nothing going on. And we've also been collecting eDNA data as well, which has indicated the types of different fish species which are present in the catchment. And the Aparima freshwater management unit is quite lucky. It does have quite a diversity of native fish, including some quite rare and endangered native fish as well, which is cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that eDNA is environmental DNA, and we at the end of autumn were able to do 21 tests along the Aparima, and you can find those on the Wilder Lab website or our ACE website, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So hey, Justin, who is actually doing the testing for ACE?
Yeah, so one of the key conditions from the farmers is they wanted the data to be collected in a robust way, in an independent way that couldn't be challenged on its validity. So we have engaged an independent contractor that's based in Southland, and she is collecting the data for us. She samples the same day that Environment Southland samples their regular monitoring stations. She's using what's known as the National Environmental Monitoring Standard. So she's using the exact same standards data collectors are meant to use throughout the country. And we're also sending them to exactly the same lab that Environment Southland is sending their data to. And this lab is internationally accredited. So it's got a robust standard that, you can send, that's international standard, and no matter where you send your sample to in the world, it'll be complete, it'll be analyzed using exactly the same method. So our data is entirely comparable to the information that Environment Southland is collecting as well.
Oh, I imagine that's really important.
Yeah.
So how did we choose, or how did ACE choose the sites that they're testing?
Yeah, so that was a long conversation, and there's always pros and cons to whatever you sample, and I guess the challenge is money and time. You always want the most amount of data, and what you always do is you go down is, I want to sample these things at these sites this frequently, and this sounds wonderful, this is all the data you need, and then all of a sudden you figure out how much it's going to cost, and it completely blows your budget. So you've then got to scale it back to what your budget is able to suit. And this happens everywhere in every conversation. So what happened was, at the beginning when we were debating it, there were a couple of schools of thought. One school of thought was, let's sample once or twice a year, and every farmer can go and sample a waterway discharging from their farm. The other option was to sample some tributaries in the places where the regional council wasn't monitoring, and we will sample fewer sites but at a high frequency. And we ended up settling on the second option that I've just explained. And the reason for that was, if you go and sample a whole bunch of waterways flowing through farms, or up and downstream of a waterway running through a farm, but you only took one sample, when do you pick it? How representative of it is it of actual conditions flowing through the farm and seasonally and stuff like that? Versus if you sample more frequently at fewer sites, you do get that temporal resolution. So you can work out, yes, you might pick up a flood and you might pick up a drought, but you're also picking up those flows in between, and it's a lot more representative, because we can't control floods and can't control how much rainfall, but what's coming off the land during a flood or a big rain event is equally important as what's coming through rivers during a drought. So we ended up selecting fewer sites, but collecting more data, monthly data, to get a better resolution of that data, to understand the patterns of water quality when contaminants are leaving our farms and our industrial sites and our urban areas. But we have had to sacrifice spatial resolution. But we're still collecting about data from 20 odd sites, so that's still pretty good.
Yeah, yep. And the Oropuki catchment was able to get some water quality sites, weren't they? Because before this program, they actually had no regional council sites. Is that correct?
That is correct. So I'll bring up a map of I'll share my screen. These are the sites that we're collecting, that ACE is funding. Well, Thriving Southland is funding ACE to collect data from. Can you see that?
Oh, yep. If you just make it
PowerPoint.
large.
Yep.
There you go. Perfect.
So this image here, it's a bit ugly, so I do apologise for that. So this is the Aparima Freshwater Management Unit. So these green dots, this is where Environment Southland is collecting macroinvertebrate data. And macroinvertebrates are the creepy crawlies that live on the stream bed. They're really good indicators of long-term ecological health, because they're living in the river all the time. Out of curiosity, can you see my cursor?
Yes, yep, we can
Yep,
see it.
cool. So
Yep.
yeah, so at Hill Point Stream, Environment Southland is only collecting macroinvertebrate data. But when we go up to the Hamilton burn at Efflick Road, the regional council is collecting water chemistry data. So again, that was the stuff that I explained earlier, and they're collecting macroinvertebrate data. And then these pink sites, this is bacteria data for recreational monitoring, and that's to assess human health. So obviously, these sites here are where people are recreating. So, in estuaries and rivers, in that marine environment for surfing or whatever. So they're collecting data for that. And then these orange diamonds, this is the Thriving Southland Aparima ACE data that we are collecting. And so we've got about 20 sites that we're collecting data for. It goes 1 to 21, but I don't think we've got. Yeah, I think it's 20. It might be 21. Yeah, so they're the sites that we're monitoring, and we're monitoring monthly for the most part. I think at the beginning of the project it was monthly. At the end of the project it's going to be monthly. But again, those budgetary constraints we're doing every second month this calendar year.
Yeah, cool. No, it's awesome to see actually the addition of all these sites. And so we're going to be receiving a lot of data. Awesome. Who is receiving it, and what is sort of the plans to share that information with the community?
Yep. So the lab processes the data, and the lab then sends the results back through to our data collector, and then she processes the results. She makes sure that that they make sense and there's nothing horribly wrong with the data from a quality control perspective, and then she flicks it through to me, and I'm sort of looking after the data on behalf of Thriving Southland and behalf of ACE, and I share that data with whoever wants it, and at the end of the project we'll give it to somebody, whoever wants it. So at the moment we've processed the results and we've got the data, and it's showing some quite interesting patterns. But what are we going to do with that? So there's a couple of things. We've got to get this data. It's really interesting story that's coming out of this data that we really want to share. So the main way we're going to share it is at field days and catchment group days and things like that. So ACE has a few events planned in the late spring, summer period. When the farming calendar calms down a bit, we'll be having some events, and we'll be sharing this data as well. But we can develop a fact sheet or do another webinar or something like that as well. So we definitely plan on getting it out to the community. It's just a matter of finding out what the best way is. And if anyone's got a great idea or has a way that they want to receive the data, by all means let us know, and we'll do what's fit for purpose for you guys.
Yeah, cool. And so ACE has been communicating water quality results to date with its sort of catchment groups and committee members. But would it be fair to say the findings so far, are hard to sort of draw some firm conclusions or make some assumptions due to sort of how water quality works, and you do need quite a large amount before you can see trends?
Yep. So regional councils collect data monthly, and they need about 10 years of monthly data, to develop a robust trend analysis. But we're starting from the data that we've got, we're starting to see patterns, and the strength of your conclusions is based on how much data you do have. But I think there are some patterns starting to emerge that are quite insightful, that can help drive the sorts of actions on farm that are necessary to rectify some of the challenges. Yeah.
So yeah, fabulous. This water quality workstream is just one of many for ACE, and we are building a picture that is made up of many different tangents, and water quality is complemented by our ACE stream walks. So we're getting out into the community and we're using those eDNA tests, the microinvertebrate index. We're looking at rabbit habitat assessment to really sort of showcase that there is a lot to analyze, and there is a many multitude of ways that you can do this. So with everything, it's take it with a grain of salt, and we encourage you to look at the full picture before sort of drawing any conclusions. So Justin, just if you could give us like a final kind of synopsis maybe of this water quality work stream, where we're at, where we're going, and what we are trying to achieve.
Yep. So there's about 8 months worth of monitoring to go. So there's about another 7 data points that we're going to be able to collect, which is awesome, which will help us paint a picture of what's happening. We're putting it in the context of the regional council data, which is a relatively long-term data set. And when I say long-term, sort of early 2000s, that is unfortunately a long-term data set. It would have been great if we were monitoring 100 years ago, but we weren't. So we can only paint a picture with the data that we've got. Got to share the data, but yeah, again, that rapid habitat assessment, that eDNA data will be really useful to help paint that picture. Yeah, I don't think there's much else to add apart from that.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you very much, Justin. So if you want to find the water quality site map, you can find it at www.thrivingsouthland.co.nz/ACE and just find your way through there. We also just have a bit more information around, how we got to this point and where we're going. So enjoy, and any questions, fire them our way. Thank you.
Thank you.